Hello. Today General Hospital will reveal Kate Mansi, the actress who has captured the hearts of millions through her multi-layered, emotionally charged portrayal of Christina in the long-running and widely acclaimed soap opera General Hospital, has taken a step that few would have anticipated. After building a deep and enduring connection with viewers and crafting a character who felt as real and flawed as any person outside the screen, she has now announced her departure from the role that has defined a major chapter of her career. But this is not a retreat from storytelling, it is an evolution, a transformation, and a leap into an entirely new creative arena where she will control every note, every beat, and every frame. The announcement is more than a casting change. It is the declaration of a new artistic mission, one that carries with it risk, vulnerability, and an unflinching commitment to telling her own truth. For long-time viewers of General Hospital, Christina was not merely a scripted persona. She was a living, breathing force, both fragile and fierce, navigating intense personal loss, family rifts, and emotional upheaval. Mansi's performance imbued Christina with an authenticity that resonated far beyond the soap's fanbase. One of the most unforgettable arcs came when Christina endured the devastating loss of the baby she had been carrying for Molly and TJ, a storyline that Mansi rendered with such raw pain and quiet strength that it became a hallmark of her time on the show. This duality, the ability to convey both vulnerability and resilience, was part of what made her work so magnetic. Yet beneath the public acclaim and the rhythm of daily scripted drama, Mansi was nurturing an unspoken ambition. To step outside the boundaries of a character created for her and craft something entirely her own. That something has now taken form in the shape of an independent short film, her most personal project to date. The concept is a bold fusion of autobiographical honesty and fictionalized artistry, drawing directly from an incident in her own life that was, in equal parts, humiliating, hilarious, and transformative. On April 1, 2025, during what should have been a celebratory final stretch of shooting an independent feature, she found herself in the middle of a perfect storm of calamities. With just one day left to shoot, the production was already strained by the chaos of late winter blizzards, repeated delays, and the pressure to meet the final deadline. That was the moment when fate decided to strike its cruelest blow. Mansi was hit with severe food poisoning. The physical toll was brutal. Stomach cramps, nausea, and a wave of exhaustion so deep it felt like a second skin, but she knew that halting production would have consequences far beyond her own discomfort. Independent filmmaking often runs on the thinnest of margins, both financially and logistically, and Mansi understood that stopping could derail the entire project. So she armed herself with Pedialyte for hydration, Pepto-Bismol to soothe her stomach, and a stubborn willpower that refused to bend. It was this same willpower that carried her onto the set that day, where she learned that the only remaining scene to be filmed was one of the most technically and emotionally delicate, an intimate romantic sequence requiring nuanced physical connection, precise choreography, and emotional focus. The irony of the moment could have been scripted by a master of tragicomedy. She was not alone in her misery. Several members of the cast and crew had fallen victim to the same foodborne illness. The set became a surreal blend of determination and absurdity. The makeup trailer was in disarray, littered with hastily abandoned cosmetics and half-empty bottles of electrolyte solution. The intimacy coordinator worked with near-military precision to keep the atmosphere professional. Her co-star had prepared meticulously, their energy standing in almost comical contrast to her own barely contained queasiness. Inside her head, a singular refrain repeated, "Don't ruin the scene. Just make it through. Don't let this be the reason we fail." It was in the absurd collision of human frailty and professional resolve that the seed for her short film was planted. Mansi saw in that day not just a personal ordeal but a perfect microcosm of the chaos, beauty, and unpredictability of creative work, especially in the unforgiving, tightly wound world of independent cinema. She began to reimagine the experience not as an embarrassing chapter to be hidden away, but as a narrative that could be reshaped into something cathartic, comedic, and ultimately empowering. To bring the vision to life, she teamed with filmmaker Courtney Pape and actor-producer J.J. Nolan, collaborators who understood both the humor and the humanity at the heart of the story. Together, They began developing a short film that would balance slapstick absurdity with moments of quiet truth, capturing not only the ridiculousness of the events themselves but also the unspoken resilience required to push through them. Mansi's GoFundMe campaign for the project is more than a request for financial backing, it's an invitation for her audience to step into the role of creative partner. Supporters are offered exclusive perks, from behind-the-scenes access to personalized keepsakes, deepening the sense of shared ownership in the project. Yet she has made it clear that the film will not be limited to the comedic surface of the food poisoning episode. Woven through it will be strands of her real-life struggles, heartbreaks that reshaped her, personal losses that left scars, and her own battles with mental health, a theme she has openly discussed through her Sunday Support series. In leaving General Hospital, Mansi is walking away from the stability of a role that gave her daily visibility and a secure place in the hearts of soap opera fans. But in doing so, she is also stepping toward an artistic freedom that cannot be found within the constraints of network television. It is a risk, yes, but also an affirmation that the stories she most needs to tell are the ones that spring directly from her own lived experience. Her announcement has been met with a complex mix of emotions. Fans mourn the departure of her Christina, but many have expressed admiration for her courage and excitement to see what she will create on her own terms. The industry, too, is watching closely, as her decision reflects a growing trend of performers using their platform and fan base to build independent, deeply personal projects. For Mansi, this short film is not just another acting credit, it is a statement. It is proof that art can be born from the most uncomfortable, chaotic, and unexpected of circumstances. It is a declaration that the truest stories are often the ones that require us to step out of the roles that made us safe and into the vulnerable space of being fully ourselves. If the funding succeeds and the film comes to life, it will be more than a humorous retelling of a bad day on set. It will be a testament to the grit of a woman who refused to let discomfort or fear define her, and who instead chose to transform them into something that could make others laugh, feel, and remember what it means to endure. And perhaps that is the most fitting next act for Kate Mansi, to stand not as Christina, the character, but as Kate, the storyteller. Owning her narrative, sharing it without apology, and inviting the world to see her, not just as an actress playing a role, but as a creator who has something only she can say. It was the sheer absurdity, the relentless tension, and the unshakable grit of that day that convinced Kate Mansi she could not simply let the experience fade into the past as an unfortunate anecdote. Instead, it demanded to be transformed into art. Into a short film that would capture not only the comedic ridiculousness of the moment but also the deeply human truths woven through it. This wasn't about turning embarrassment into a cheap laugh, it was about distilling the raw chaos of life into a story that could make people both laugh and feel, offering a window into resilience when circumstances conspire to push a person to their limits. To bring this vision from memory to screen, Kate turned to trusted collaborators who understood her creative instincts and respected the unique blend of vulnerability and humor she wanted to achieve. Filmmaker Courtney Pape, known for her ability to balance sharp comedic timing with emotional depth, signed on to co-write and direct, ensuring the story's heart would be as strong as its humor. Alongside them, actor and producer J.J. Nolan brought a wealth of industry experience and a shared belief in the project's potential to resonate with audiences beyond the confines of traditional independent film. Together, they began shaping the screenplay into a living, breathing reflection of that fateful day, its chaos, its unplanned comedy, and its quiet moments of truth beneath the noise. From the outset, Kate knew this film could not be funded or created in the conventional way. It was too personal, too specific, too unvarnished to fit into the neat categories of studio-backed productions. So she turned to the very people who had supported her throughout her career, her fans. Through a GoFundMe campaign, she not only sought the financial backing needed to bring the project to life but also extended an invitation for her audience to become active participants in its creation. The campaign was designed not as a one-way appeal but as a collaboration, offering unique perks that allowed contributors to feel intimately connected to the process, exclusive behind-the-scenes updates, personalized thank you messages, and even opportunities to be credited in the final film. For Kate, this wasn't just fundraising. It was about building a community around a story that, while born from her personal experience, touched on universal themes of perseverance, vulnerability, and the humor found in life's messiest moments. Yet beneath the playful premise and comedic framing, the project was never meant to be purely light-hearted. Kate made it clear that while audiences could expect to laugh, they would also be invited into more shadowed corners of her personal history. The film would subtly weave in the emotional undercurrents that have shaped her, heartbreaks that left deep emotional imprints, personal losses that altered her perspective, and the complex, ongoing process of navigating mental health challenges. These themes were not new territory for her. She had spoken openly about them in her Sunday Support series, an online mental health platform she created to share stories, foster dialogue, and encourage vulnerability in a world that often prizes polished perfection. By incorporating these elements into the film, Kate sought to create something layered, art that could stand on its own as an entertaining piece of cinema but also reward those who looked deeper. It would be a work that didn't shy away from the messy contradictions of being human, the way humor can coexist with pain, how determination can sit side by side with fear, and how even the most ridiculous situations can carry a quiet weight beneath the laughter. In doing so, she was not only crafting a film but also reclaiming the narrative of that difficult day, reframing it from an ordeal into a piece of storytelling that could connect with people who had faced their own unpredictable storms. For Kate, the project is more than just a creative detour after leaving General Hospital. It is a declaration of artistic independence, a reaffirmation of her belief that the most powerful stories are those drawn from lived experience, told with honesty, and presented without compromise. The collaboration with Pape and Nolan has given the project the structural support it needs to thrive, but the heart of the film remains entirely her own. It is her story, her vision, her willingness to expose both the humor and the hurt, and her courage to invite others into that space. If the campaign succeeds and the short film reaches audiences, it will be more than just a snapshot of an unusual day on set, it will be a layered exploration of how people endure, adapt, and find light in the absurd. For the fans who have followed Kate's career, it will be an opportunity to see her not as Christina, the role that brought her into their homes each day, but as herself, a woman willing to transform discomfort into connection, chaos into comedy, and personal hardship into art. In many ways, that transformation is the truest form of storytelling, and it is the journey Kate Mansi has now committed herself to sharing. Leaving behind a role that is both secure and beloved to step into the unpredictable, often treacherous terrain of independent filmmaking is not a choice made lightly, and for Kate Mansi, it has been a decision shaped by both courage and necessity. The role of Christina in General Hospital had not only brought her daily visibility and a steady place in the entertainment landscape, but it had also given her a lasting bond with millions of viewers who had followed her through every storyline twist, heartbreak, and triumph. In many ways, walking away from that stability meant walking away from a kind of safety net, a guaranteed platform, a familiar rhythm, and a character who had become synonymous with her name. Yet for Kate, the allure of stability was not enough to silence the deeper calling that had been growing within her, the need to tell her own story, in her own way, free from the constraints of a network script and the predetermined arcs of a long-running soap opera. She knew, from the very beginning of contemplating this leap, that success was not a given. Independent filmmaking is a realm where passion often collides with logistical hurdles, where the resources are limited, and the risks of failure are ever present. There would be no corporate safety net, no guaranteed audience, and no certainty that her vision would resonate beyond her own heart. But Kate understood something far more important: artistic fulfillment cannot be measured solely by external validation. For her, the measure of success would be in the authenticity of the work itself, in crafting something that was wholly hers, shaped by her lived experiences, her humor, her pain, and her unfiltered voice. She saw this project not simply as a film, but as an embodiment of personal truth, and that truth was worth the uncertainty. When she announced her departure from General Hospital, Kate delivered her message with both gratitude and sincerity. She took time to acknowledge the production team, the crew who had been with her through countless days on set, and the fellow actors who had become more than colleagues. They had become her creative partners and, in many cases, her friends. She expressed deep appreciation for the trust they had shown her, the opportunities they had given her to stretch herself as an actress, and the collaborative spirit that had allowed Christina to evolve into such a layered, emotionally complex character. Above all, Kate's words were directed to the audience, the loyal fans who had embraced Christina, defended her, cried with her, and celebrated her moments of strength. She spoke of how their dedication and passion had fueled her performances, how their letters, social media messages, and in-person encounters had given her a profound sense of connection that transcended the screen. It was clear that leaving the role did not mean leaving the relationship she had built with them. Rather, she hoped to carry that connection into the next phase of her career, inviting them to follow her on a new creative journey that might look different but would still come from the same place of honesty and heart. The outpouring of responses she received was overwhelming in its warmth. Fans from around the world sent messages filled with bittersweet emotion. Congratulations for her bravery in chasing her dream, encouragement for the path ahead, and heartfelt sadness at the thought of no longer seeing her in their living rooms each day. Many admitted they would miss Christina's fiery resilience and tender vulnerability, the qualities that Kate had infused into the role with such care. Others expressed excitement to see her explore uncharted creative territory, confident that whatever she produced would carry the same emotional depth and authenticity they had come to love. For Kate, reading these messages was both humbling and affirming. They were a reminder that while she was stepping away from the familiar, she was not stepping away alone. The support of her audience, along with her own relentless drive to tell meaningful stories, formed the foundation of her confidence as she moved into the uncertain waters of independent cinema. In her mind, the risk was worth it, not because the outcome was guaranteed, but because the act of trying, of daring to create something that was entirely hers, was in itself an act of success. In leaving General Hospital, Kate was not closing a door so much as opening a new one that led to a place where she could blend vulnerability with creative control, where she could take the unpredictability of life and transform it into art. The decision demanded sacrifice, but it also promised freedom, the kind of freedom that can only come when an artist chooses to follow their own compass, even if the path ahead is uncharted. And for Kate Mansi, that freedom, that chance to tell her story without compromise, was worth every step into the unknown. Kate Mansi now finds herself standing at a crossroads that few artists ever truly dare to face, a moment where she must shed the skin of the roles that have defined her in the public eye and step wholly into a creative space of her own making. This is not simply a career change or a new credit on her resume, it is a complete redefinition of her identity as a storyteller. For years, audiences have known her as Christina, the compelling and complex character she brought to life on General Hospital, a role that demanded emotional depth, fierce resilience, and moments of piercing vulnerability. But while that character resonated deeply with millions, Christina was still, at the end of the day, a construct, a fictional vessel shaped by the visions of others. Now, for the first time, Kate is choosing to become both the architect and the inhabitant of her story, the living embodiment of her own script, and the voice that will guide audiences through every high, low, and unexpected turn. The memories she is drawing upon for this project are not sanitized or neatly packaged for comfort, they are raw, unpolished, and carved from the moments in her life that once seemed too heavy to carry. These are memories that brought tears, silence, and a weight in the chest that lingered long after the moment had passed, memories of personal loss, heartbreak, failure, and the disorienting process of rebuilding. Rather than keeping these experiences locked away, Kate is taking them apart piece by piece, examining them under the light of artistic intent, and stitching them into a narrative that can connect with others who have faced their own unrelenting storms. She understands that while pain is deeply personal, the themes that emerge from it, resilience, self-discovery, the bittersweet humor in survival, are universal. By confronting her own past so directly, she hopes to give others permission to see the art and value in their own. If her crowdfunding campaign reaches its goal, the film will stand as something far greater than a personal project. It will be a symbol of what can happen when adversity is not simply endured but transformed.